Hello, friends. Thank you for joining us here. I'm Dr. Deepesh Prajapati. I'm a pediatric dentist. Those who don't know, I practice in Jaipur, and today I'll be sharing few tips, tricks, and few logics out of my experience of doing exclusive pediatric dentistry for almost 7 years now after passing my MDS. So the that's why I've kept the heading of this webinar as demystifying pediatric dentistry. I often find people who are not into pediatric dentistry often avoid, or I would say ignore, not treating pediatric patients because of many reasons which we are aware of. So I just want people after hearing this webinar to start reading relevant text, gain confidence, and apply some logics which are usually not given in books so that even you can add another set of patients of the lesser age group, which is pediatrics, and probably help those kids with the correct treatment and, of course, referrals as and when required. So this is actually a part two of my webinar series. The part one I did for same Cheza Academy few weeks back. That in that I included when to do what kind of procedures. So those who have not seen this, I would highly recommend you. You can go back to the respective Facebook page, or it's there on my YouTube page as well, to watch this uh, webinar, recorded webinar, and get the knack of what kind of procedures I do in what cases, like when to do pulpec, when to do exodontia, IPC, TPC, and other things. So combining this and that webinar, I think it will take you around 2 to 3 hours at your leisure. And after this, I think you will be much more confident in dealing with pediatric age groups. Sorry for another dose of probably toxic webinars, which have been going since 4 months. But trust me, during this webinar, it won't be textbook stuff. I'll be just trying to keep things as practical as possible in less than 1 hour as promised. So just stay tuned and hope you will enjoy, and the jokes in between are totally on me. So stay tuned. So dentistry since long has been projected as very dreadful profession. Going to a dentist or a dentist image is usually shown, I mean, as a demon, nothing short of demon. I mean, uh, so the same thing since centuries has been carried out, and how many number of times I've observed that young kid age 3 to 4, I mean, he doesn't know who is a dentist. He's super confident in dealing with me. Mind you, the kid is super confidently dealing with me, but the parents are scared. The parents are scared. Probably they had a bad experience, or they have heard it from someone that dentist cause it does only painful treatments, and then they are knowingly or unknowingly passing on the same anxiety to the child and making my job difficult. Even if they are not able to pass on their anxiety to the child, they don't agree for particular treatments because it is anxiety provoking for the parent. So I think this is something we have to work on in demystifying the anxiety about dentistry what people have. This is a movie poster which I come across while researching more on anxiety in common people about dentistry, and I really felt sad. The things which are written on this poster, as you can see, if you got teeth, this film is guaranteed to give you nightmares. Anyone with teeth will be terrified. I mean, what kind of image this poster is trying to project? And this is, an old movie. I've not seen it, but I just went through the poster. So you have to understand that each and every one of your patient has some kind of dental anxiety somewhere Either they are expressing it, or if they are not expressing it, it's hidden there. This is a famous survey which is given in an iconic textbook by Dr. Malamed. It says, after public speaking, I mean, I was so scared of public speaking when I was into my graduation days. I mean, stage fear, the things we call. And the second fear after public speaking is going to the dentist. So yes, I'm myself is I'm a bad dental patient, but yes, I totally agree with public speaking and going to the dentist. Things are very fearful, and we have to keep in mind that how prevalent this dental fear is among our population. Now, what problem this dental fear causes is, I mean, it's a vicious cycle of dental fear for the patients. Because of dental fear, because of going to a dental patient, they avoid getting the dental treatment done, which eventually not filling those cavities leads to much poorer oral health, and not filling those cavities and having even more worse oral health obviously get that cavitated tooth into a root canal stage, or maybe extraction and implant case, which changes it to a more complex treatment and increases the dental cost. And finally, I mean, more complex the procedure, now you have to give local anesthesia, and it becomes a more dental anxiety provoking procedure. We all know about this among our patients, but have we ever wondered that it is also applied for dentists who are fearful of treating a pediatric patient? I mean, we don't want the child to get into trouble, but I mean, I get so many patients that we showed to our family dentist when the child was age 2. They said they are milk teeth, they're going to fall off, don't require treatment. It's not causing pain right now. Why are you getting worried about it? And when the same child turns 3.5, he is a full blown general anesthesia case. I mean, I feel so sad for the parents, for the kid. I mean, he was unknowingly or unwillingly thrown into the general anesthesia scenario, which we could have avoided when he was just 2. I always tell parents, see, fever might come to a 2-day-old baby, to a 2-year-old baby, or a 80-year-old adult. If fever is there, you have to treat it. Disease treatment, you cannot delay disease treatment just because of the age. So my parents tell me, he's so small, is it required? He's so small, do we need to get those fillings done? He's so small to do this and that. The same example I give them, whether your child has a fever, or whether you has a fever, or whether the child's grandparent has a fever, you have to give him a paracetamol if required. So don't unnecessarily make the treatment complex. If we ponder on that, what are the reasons that why we actually delay treatment to the pediatric age group is, what I feel is, it's probably the topmost reason is we are not exposed to enough number of cases during our training days, during our college days. I mean, pediatric dentistry in BDS is just taken as a mixture of prosthodontics, endodontics, and other subjects, right? I mean, if we get a pulpectomy long question, we'll write what we do in root canals. For pediatric dentistry, just read about space maintainer and probably behavior management, and that's it. We are done for the theory paper. So this is what a wrong mentality is given to the students, which they carry on forward in their practice. They don't take pediatric dentistry seriously, and trust me, I will be telling you in this seminar. I mean, people are running after implants and whatnot, thinking that it is a high earning dental treatment, crowns. I'll give you examples. I'm telling you, there is nothing much more rewarding monetarily than doing a pediatric dentistry case. Other reasons is because of the same reason we become not so confident to deliver predictable treatment. We don't feel that if I do a filling in this, will it stay? Will the pain get relieved by doing those dental fillings? So we are not confident because of less number of exposure and experience. And then we think, oh my God, who will break head with this kid? Let me treat his mom or his dad. I'll tell him, open his mouth, half an hour, give me my money. In half an hour, the child might not shake hand with you and become friendly with you. Forget about showing his teeth to you. So yes, initially it is slow. So you have to we have to overcome this initial hiccups of treating pediatric patients. And yes, the parents don't agree to get milk to treat it. On a funny side, I always tell, I mean, it's easier to convince a kid to get the treatment than the parents, and forget about grandparents. I mean, you really can't. I feel difficult. I feel difficulty in counseling grandparents, especially. So this is again something which we have inculcated about importance of milk tea through various channels, whatever uh, things we can use. Oh my God, managing kids. Yes, who will and how will I manage kids? I get so many panic calls from other dentists. Doctor, this kid doesn't show me teeth. This doesn't kid doesn't opens his mouth. This doesn't do that. This kid doesn't do this and that. I mean, the dentist who is speaking on phone and asking me for a treatment plan for this kid is already terrified of that kid. So yes, this presentation is mainly about how you can manage kids and eventually make them a cooperative patient. But yes, if you genuinely don't like kids and you have an impatient personality that you can't overcome that initial first or two appointments, that to make the child friendly and explain things to parents and the child, if you don't have the patient friendly, I'm telling you, you are a great dentist who will do great things in adult dentistry. Probably you can just don't think practicing pediatric dentistry. But rest, if you like kids and you have little patience in your personality, everyone can do a very good, predictable pediatric dentistry. That's what I believe. So let's talk about managing kids. So I'll be giving you 10 tips which I have put on this presentation, and I feel it will be very helpful for you. Tip number one, we all know that any human being, when exposed to a fearful stimuli, we either fight, face, flight, or freeze. So the first thing is understand why the child is fearful. I'm telling you, this is very important. Try to talk to the child. Behavior guidance, non-pharmacological, always you write first thing as communication, communication, communication in your short notes as well, long questions. So remember, this communication is the most important behavior management. Now we call it behavior guidance technique. So talk to the child, understand why the child is fearful or anxious. I got an 8-year-old kid last week, and he was behaving like a very young kid, and I mean holding the door handle and not and resisting to walk into my operatory. I said, okay, we are not going into the dental operatory. Let's sit at our reception and talk. And after talking to 5 minutes, I understood that his classmate, which was his very good friend, didn't had a good dental experience, and that information has been passed on to him by his friend, and that's why he's fearful. So it just took me 1 minute to make him understand that I am not an ordinary dentist. I don't treat adults. I only treat kids. Now imagine if I was causing pain to each and every kid comes to me. Do you think I would be into my business? Do you think I'll be earning from this? And that 8-year-old kid immediately understood the difference, that he is not that one thing is not the same dentist. Plus he is a child specialist, so probably he doesn't will not he doesn't causes pain to children. He will help me out, and he was a very cooperative kid. We could finish all the treatment 2 visits and done. So as I said, communication, both verbal and non-verbal. Verbal is just an example I gave you, that you talk to the child. Non-verbal is your face expression, everything. See, if you don't like child walking into your clinic, and even if you are not saying anything, oh my God, why has he come today? Why a kid has come? Why the kid is crying? Even if you are feeling it from inside, you will give a non-verbal communication to the child that you don't like him. If he knows that you don't like him, it's not going to work out. Plus, other non-verbal, verbal positive communication will be giving a high five, handshake, pat on the back. I mean, it works well. In pre-COVID era, I mean, I was famous among my kids that I am a high five giving dentist. Everything a child does good, I used to give him high five. He used to open his mouth wide, give me 5 seconds to check his teeth, high five. Allows me to put suction in his mouth and he's okay with it, high five. So, I mean, high five used to work really well for me in pre-COVID era. Sadly, I can't touch kids much these days. Tell, show, do. We all know these things. I'm not going to repeat this. Be slow in introducing the instruments to the child. I mean, you can't expect a child patient open your mouth, your suction, your assistant is picking the suction, you are picking the drill, you're just switched on the light, and all three, four stimulus are together on the child, and boom. I mean, a cooperative adult will feel shock if you introduce such stimulus all together on the first day of the appointment. It's not gonna work. So I always start with the airway syringe, three-way syringe, give a puff of air on his hand, then on his tongue, then probably on the teeth. Then I show them the suction, make them feel of the vacuum on their hand, then on the tongue, and then ask them to close their lips on the suction tip and feel it that how it will suck the fluid out. Then I go to this thing. So you have to introduce the stimulus in an hierarchy. The least provoking first, the most fearful or anxiety provoking stimulus in the last. So activity, social and materialistic positive reinforcement work as well. I have a full box of gifts. I mean, they are not very expensive gifts. They are there are fancy straws, pencils, smiley patches, erasers. I think bubbles is also there. So after the treatment, I always tell the child you can pick one thing which you want. Oh, there's kids. Not to mention that those clays. I guess a lot of things have to be discontinued because of the anti-Chinese things these days. But pre-COVID era, I had a lot of stuff, and yes, all of them were Chinese in make. But yes, it used to work. I mean, great. I mean, used to parent the kid used to look for the second appointment because he will have a second look into that box with all the gifts, and he will pick us something different on the second appointment. It works really well, and it doesn't cost you much. I mean, 15, 20 rupees each gift. That's it. Some of them are even cheaper. So this is a materialistic reinforcer. Social reinforcer is, I mean, you tell them, wow, you did great. You are acting like a Captain America. You are acting like a Hulk. You are so strong and all those things. Activities, you tell them, I'll take you to my aquarium and I'll show you my favorite fish if you get this thing. So and the child really likes activity. Many books says that activity reinforcement is the best reinforcement. Materialistic reinforcement might fade off, social might fade off, but if you promise them some activity, if you have a video game in your reception, I'll play a video game with you. I have a slide, I have a Ludo and a snake and ladder board in my reception. I tell them if you get this and I play Ludo with you and all those. And children like the activity reinforcement as well. I mean, you can keep on playing Ludo on every visit and the child won't go get bored of. But if you're giving a pencil, same pencil as a materialistic reinforcement in all the appointments, the child will get bored of. That's why I think the positive reinforcement, the activity reinforcement is considered to be best. And obviously, how does your dental office look like? I mean, you have to make it little child friendly with few things, toys on the reception, maybe in your operatory, and we know all know. I mean, I'm not going to explain, but yes, make your team and your interiors a little child friendly. So this article I went through while preparing this webinar, and it talks about various communication strategies during pediatric dental treatment. They have divided it into three approaches. The first is empathic approach. My mentors always tell me, Dipesh, be empathic, show empathy to the parents. I mean, before being a parent myself, I used to shout, just scold to parents that what you have done with your kid, and all guns blazing, and the mothers used to cry and all those things. But after becoming, I mean, with experience, I have learned that being empathy works better. I mean, you have to tell them that I understand me being a father as well. It's difficult to give time for the kids for the oral hygiene. I know how cranky kids are. I mean, you have to sound empathic. So with it, and it's same for the kid. I mean, if you're putting a drill and he's filing the vibration, you have to tell him, I care how you feel. Don't tell him I know it doesn't feel and stop crying. So that's how you know your words, the words have to be chosen very smartly. I'm trying to understand how you feel. It's all right to feel as you do. So he should know that I mean, you are empathic towards him. Personal approach, establish a rapport. As I said, in communication helps a lot. Asking open personal questions brings about a trustful relationship. Favorite question is, which school do you go? What is your class teacher's name? What is your best friend's name? Communication. I mean, so it helps getting that thing. Then the third thing is permissive approach, which is you have to very smartly use alternative and non-threatening vocabulary. I mean, you cannot tell him, open your mouth and give you, I'm gonna give you an injection. Probably you have to tell him that I'm giving a sleepy medicine to the teeth. But remember, at the same time, you have to provide the relevant information. I'll be talking about this in the in coming slides. But don't tell them that nothing happens after giving the local anesthesia. Okay, we all know that what changes, how funny, how numb anyone feels after giving local anesthesia. And yes, this special arrow is pointing towards American Academy of Pediatric Dentistry. I advise all the dentists who are, whenever you are confused about anything, just Google about it. AAPD, which is American Academy of Pediatric Dentistry guidelines on XYZ. Suppose you have a teething patient. Teething guidelines by American Academy of Pediatric Dentistry. Pulpectomy guidelines by AAPD. So Google these, read about it. Their recommendations are most research based and you can blindly follow it. Then don't get confused that you have contacted 3 MDS pediatric dentists and all 3 are giving different information. Just follow what AAPD says and if you are confident, perform the procedure. So this is what I said, the relevant information has to be passed out. It says receiving detailed description regarding the anticipated sensation and feeling were more helpful to the child and enhanced cooperation. I'll give you an example. You're giving a local anesthesia, don't tell that nothing happened. Tell them, I'm putting a sleepy medicine and you will feel numb. You will feel funny on your tongue, on your lip. I mean, I have, during a PG days, that's what my guy, Dr. Rashmi Nayak, told me, that if you don't tell the child how he's going to feel, you will turn a cooperative kid into an uncooperative one just because of your mistake. So many times it used to happen, a cooperative kid, once I give him local anesthesia, I'm not doing anything. I mean, he's just having that different feeling of face, face getting big and things like that, and he starts crying. And we wonder what went wrong. You didn't explain him that how he's supposed to feel after giving that local anesthesia. So the words are very nicely have been put here. Anticipated sensation and feeling has to be conveyed. I mean, you need not tell them that you're giving an injection, you're giving a sleepy medicine, how he's supposed to feel after that. This helps the child to get prepared what he's going to feel in next 2 to 3 minutes. And obviously, I mean, coming to the second tip, if you know that this tooth might be TOP positive and the child is already anxious, please don't tap that tooth and check whether TOP is positive or negative. I mean, that's what I follow is you have so many other methods to determine. I mean, before doing that TOP, check the mobility, palpate the soft tissues around the tooth, take an X-ray, and then if you still feel that you have to do a sensitivity test or a thing on the first appointment, make sure you just need it for your diagnosis, then only do it. I mean, how we do it adult dentistry, tuck, 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 patient says, okay, RCT. It doesn't happen in kids that way. If you actually have caused pain to a kid patient on day one just because of your sensitivity, cold, hot or cold test or tapping with your mouth mirror on that tooth and it has caused pain, gone. You have lost his confidence. He was already scared. I don't know what dentist does, and in the checkup only you have caused him pain. So be very careful doing these things. And obviously, as I said, you have to introduce things in an hierarchy. It always happens once the parent decides that the child is gonna get treatment with me. The first day is brushing. I brush for the child in front of parents. It helps me in 2 ways. First is obviously it it helps in building that bond with the child, And plus, I show parents that see, if I can brush your child's teeth without the child doing any ooh and ah, you have to brush it twice a day. Lot of parents say, "Yeah, doctor, he doesn't open his mouth, he doesn't let me brush, he pukes, he cries, and all those things." I said, he's doing it because you are a parent, and you have to be a smart parent to make him understand that this will be done. I mean, my kids under me know that if the doctor has said this will be done, they don't have an option. I said, open your mouth. He said, no, I don't want to open. It's not an option. I mean, after the communication, he knows that if the doctor has said open your mouth, he's not gonna hurt me, but I have to open the mouth. So after the brushing, my second appointment or the second thing I do is probably fluoride varnishes. Coming to then small those cavities, either I do it with spoon excavators or the micromotors. Second appointment, third appointment, and move to air rotors. We all know air rotor is little bit more. It has another stimulus of spraying water inside mouth, so it just adds to the number of stimuli we are adding. So probably second, third, maybe fourth appointment, depending how early the child cope up with the stimuli. I introduce the air rotors, and obviously, if anything is there which requires local anesthesia, extractions, pulpex, and all those things, this is my last thing to be done in various appointments. And trust me, once you follow these things, you will be able to save so many kids going to unnecessary general anesthesia. I mean, me being pediatric dentist, I boast of not doing so many general anesthesia. I do it probably once in a month. Pre-lockdown, I used to see 8 to 10 patients daily, and still, if you can make out, I mean, if I see 300 patients in a month pre-lockdown, I do only one, and probably, and most of my 80 to 90% of my general anesthesia kids are special kids. I mean, with whom you can't communicate, they don't understand. You have to do a lot of dentistry, which requires local anesthesia. So my 90% are special kids. For general anesthesia, regular kids with regular IQs, I usually manage them without it. So remember, as it's been quoted here, child's mind is a blank book. During the first years of the life, much will be written on the pages. Quality of that writing will affect his life profoundly. We all know. I mean, a 2.5-year-old cute kid has come to you with a dental issue, and then if you are gonna cause him faith, his trust with dentistry and dentist will go for whole life. He will become an anxious adult dental patient too. So I mean, it's our moral responsibility when we deal with such tender minds to be extra careful. So one tip with this is, you have done the checkup, the child, you have taken the x-rays, you know your diagnosis, you know your treatment plan. Now don't discuss your treatment plan in front of that kid. I mean, when you discuss in depth about the treatment plan with the parents, you have to use words like injection, pulling the tooth out, RCT, drill, and you don't know what that 3.5, 4-year-old kid picks the word and gets scared. So it's my rule. I mean, I tell parents, even if you are a single parent and he's not gonna leave you and go in my reception to watch those fishes, go back, leave it home, and come back. Then only I will discuss, or talk to me on phone. I will discuss if I have time. I never ever discuss my treatment plan if I'm gonna discuss invasive dentistry with parents. Trust me, you don't. I mean, you can't imagine what young minds listen and what words they can pick and then get scared of. Aerosol. We all are thinking, sleeping, dreaming about aerosols. And good part about pediatric dentist is most of our procedures are aerosol friendly as well. I mean, you can do so many fillings just with a spoon excavator and GIC. Fluoride, topical applications of silver diamine fluoride, of fluoride varnish is again aerosol friendly. I mean, you just need a suction, dry the tooth, put it, and call the patient after 6 months. I mean, you need to have the diagnosis of each particular tooth before that. I'm not saying SDF and varnish will work for all the kids, but yes, I mean, if you have a pediatric practice, you have old patients, you can obviously call them for a fluoride varnish if you feel like, and be assured that you are not producing aerosol while doing these procedures. Again, I mean, uh, One more factor which have been added as an advantage of doing exodontia for milk teeth and putting a space maintainer is aerosol. I mean, if you want to save the tooth, root canal, lot of aerosol has to be produced and all those things. So I have discussed in depth about the deciding which tooth to be extracted and which tooth to be do a pulpectomy in the previous lecture, which I just mentioned in the beginning. But yes, again, always remember exodontia is always less aerosol producing procedure. Oh, my favorite. I can talk on this topic whole day. Nitrous oxide inhalation sedation. I've just put just as a tip. It helps a lot in pediatric dentistry. And trust me, it is more predictable as a behavior management technique in adults. I mean, whenever you wish to invest anything around 3.54 lakhs in your clinic, give nitrous oxide inhalation sedation as a very strong thing. I mean, it's a USP. I mean, how many dentists in India are using nitrous oxide inhalation sedation? No. And almost every dentist in Western countries or more developed countries in India are using it. So that's why Indian dentistry is lacking. But last 2-3 years, it's really picking it up. You should know what is nitrous oxide inhalation sedation, and you should plan to incorporate in your practice. That's my advice. I mean, obviously, kids treatment will be so easy. You will be saving so many of kids from going to general anesthesia. But trust me, I don't do a adult dentistry, but I mean, I would love to give nitrous oxide inhalation sedation to adult patient and do my invasive therapies. Trust me, it is more predictable and it is more suitable for adults than kids. Give it a thought. In every dental practice, I feel should have a nitrous oxide inhalation sedation. Until every practice doesn't has it, introduce this into your practice and make it as a unique selling proposition of your practice. One more added advantage of these nitrous oxide hoods, and even if you are not using nitrous oxide, is make sure you don't show your sharp instruments to the kid. Whenever a new kid is walking into my operatory, my assistant knows that they are not supposed to put an explorer on the OPD tray. They are only supposed to put a mouth mirror, and that too not metallic. I have those colorful mirrors. I mean, on the child will always observe what is there on your chair, and I'll advise you to even remove those drills and remove, if not drill, remove that at least burr from that drill, because the child will be seeing your round, and if not that needle burr attached to your aorta, he will get scared that you're going to use on it. So I don't even put an explorer or anything. Only the day one when the child is walking in and sitting on the dental chair, I only have a mouth mirror on the OPD. Even if I need an explorer, I'll ask the assistant, which is standing behind the patient, to pass on the explorer. I will show it on his thumb, then I will do it on his teeth. So, and suppose you are doing exodontia, you have to ask your assistant to give your LA. Always pass on it below the eye level so the child cannot see. I mean, those who are into designing their dental practices right now, you can have a ceiling mounted screen, so the child is stuck to the screen and you can pass on all the instrument sharp here and there. I mean, my kids, if they have an injection appointment, they don't know they're going to get an injection, and most of the kids even don't know that they got an injection. I jokingly always ask them, see, I have done so much of your treatment, you have come to me 5-6 times, please let me give one injection at least, buddy. One? What use of coming to a dentist and you not taken an injection? And he said, no, 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 I don't want the injection. And it is the same appointment. I've given an injection, removed his tooth, and he's about to go home. So the child doesn't know. I mean, if you don't show the injection, the stress levels, the anxiety levels will be lot down. So remember, always pass instruments below the eye level of the patient. Apply it on the adults as well. Why you want to show injection and remove that bubble in front of the eyes of the patient and make them more anxious? No. As I said, dental office design. I love aquariums, and I feel the kids also like fishes as well. So in uh, adding to the behavior, adding to the interiors of your office, your dental team behavior should also be good. It should Like, I mean, it should start right from the telephonic conversation what your front desk will have when the new patient is taking an appointment. They should be welcoming. I mean, front desk only doesn't like kid patient. Then she will sound also like, oh, okay, you have a kid. Oh my God, how young is he? 2 year old. Oh, 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 oh. I mean, it should not be like that. I mean, even the front desk should be welcoming when the parent is listening. The parent should understand it's a child friendly practice. And then the child walks in also, there should be a smile on the face of the front desk and even the doctor. Oh, the debatable topic of parental presence in the operatory. Frankly, I mean, these are not the days that you go out, I'll send your kid in 5 minutes. No parent allows you to do that, which probably the dentists which are of previous generations used to do, and it was a good approach. But kids, parents really can't leave their kids away from their sight and let you do whatever, because already the parent is afraid of dentistry, the child is crying unnecessarily, and they're hearing the child voice, it doesn't go good. So I allow the parent, but I make them understand that do not interfere between me and child. I mean, do not act as a barrier with me, with communication with me and child. So I advise parents to stay there, but as a just as a new spectator. Otherwise, what they do, I'll tell the child, open your mouth. One time he won't open. Open your mouth, he doesn't open. And the mother says, beta, open your mouth, he does a white sign. White ah. You want the child to follow your instructions, not follow the mother's instructions. So it might take 5 times before he is able to follow your instructions, but give him those 5 times. Don't make it easy for yourself and the child to help the parent repeat your instruction and unnecessarily acting as a barrier, because initially it will help, but once you start doing the treatment you have to give him some small instruction. You can't really rely to do it again and again. And some kids I have just seen that they just cry just to show their parents that how much they are in trouble and give me a gift or give me some attention, give me a hug and all those things. I mean, that's what I have observed, and that this father and daughter relation is very tricky. I mean, the father also becomes anxious. The daughter is also affectionate towards the father. I always tell if it's an anxious girl, I advise not to bring father on the appointment, and that's what I feel that it works well. Very rarely, I have to really, scare the child that cooperate. Otherwise, I'll send the parent out. It happens very rarely these days, but yes, in rare circumstances, I tell the parent to go out, and there is a glass through which they can see what is getting done to the child, but the child doesn't know the parent is seeing him or her. As I said, dentist body language helps a lot. Reading more about a particular subject or automatically improves your body language. You become more confident that yes, whatever the child is walking, I'll be able to give him a predictable treatment. When you are explaining it to the parent, the parent will read your face. I mean, you always wonder if somebody is into implants, he will be able to convert more patient into implantology. If the if the if the if the, if the dentist is into endodontics, he will be able to convince more parents to get endodontics done for the same tooth. If somebody into FMR cases, full mouth rehabilitation, you always wonder how come he does so many FMR cases. The reason is he reads things about that, he explains, and he sees FMR cases everywhere. So that's why he's able to convert more FMR than you. So probably whatever things you want to do, read more. And because you are attending my webinar, I expect you to read endodontics. Oh yes, flexibility is important. See, everyone has mood swings. Someday you even don't want to go to your clinic, but you have to go because you have given appointments. So same thing happens with kids as well. Remember, a cooperative kid have already come to you 3 to 4 times. He was super cooperative, and suddenly one day he said that he doesn't want to get the treatment done. Again, first rule: communicate. Ask him why. Why is he behaving like that? If it is a valid reason, let him go. Okay, done. You don't want to get it done today? Okay, well, I won't get it. But this same thing won't happen in the next appointment. Do you promise? He'll say, yes, I promise. Next time I'll get it done. Reschedule. So he also feels that his wishes are given importance. It usually happens when you give an appointment when the child it's the child's playing time. The child wants to play out, play football or cricket with his friends, but the mother catches him from the ground field and take him to the dentist office. So be flexible in your appointments. Don't think if I send him, I'll lose half an hour of my earning and all those things. It doesn't work in pediatric dentistry. Second last tip is externalize. Externalization helps a lot. Screens, TV screens helps a lot. And thing which helped me is either counting alphabets or telling that I will count 20 and you keep your mouth open. See, if you tell the child to keep his mouth open and he doesn't know that till what age or what time he has to keep his mouth open, it doesn't goes well. You tell them I'll count 10, I'll count 10, 20 and keep your mouth open. He at least knows that he has to keep his mouth open for that long and then he will be given rest and it works well. Third thing which helps externalizing is music. I mean, I don't know what effect her voice has, but she can help me and my child patient work with a good mood. I mean, we have a saved playlist in my operatory, and in fact, now my assistant knows that when that particular song is gonna play, the doctor is gonna give him the shot. I mean, this is what I always tell them. And in fact, I also remember now nitrous oxide has taken place, effect has taken place, the topical is taking effect. Now give me that local anesthesia. So that's how it works for me. And I've stopped using screens actually because I don't have a wall mountable screen and the screen is in front wall. And because of the nasal hood, the child wants to see the screen and it creates disturbance and the child doesn't keeps his neck straight. So I've stopped making them watch cartoons when they are on nitrous. I just make them listen my favorite Neha Kakkar. Last tip is mouth blocks. I mean, this mold type of mouth block prop I have just started using maybe since 3 years, and it has worked really well. These problem with these mouth uh, blocks is, I mean, the child can only pull it out with your tongue. You need an extra assistant to keep or extra finger to hold that mouth block only. Plus, the problem with smaller mouth blocks is chances of the child losing it in your mouth and you have to always floss it. This is such a wonderful device. It comes for around 1500 rupees and it's available in sizes. You have to just keep it open and the part is out and you have enough space to work in the mouth also. Mouth props like this, I mean, they reduce the volume of the oral cavity and you have less space to work in also. This is so good. I mean, invest in this, not just for pediatric dentistry, even for adult dentistry. So remember a famous saying by McElroy I mean, it's given in most of the pediatric textbooks on behavior management. Although the operative dentistry may be perfect, but the appointment is failure if the child departs in tears. So in pediatric dentistry, you have to do predictable pediatric dentistry as a treatment as well. And at the same time, the child should not depart your clinic in tears. I mean, he should be looking that when is my next appointment. So keep working on it. So just few logics that why you should take pediatric dentistry. I'm just about to uh, I'm on the last leg of my presentation. So few logics that why you should take pediatric dentistry seriously and get your mind off from implants and which you feel are more money earning. If, pediatric dentistry, if you are doing most of the treatment on your milk teeth, how long you want your filling to stay? As long as the tooth will stay. So remember, the tooth is a temporary tooth; it's gonna fall off. So your treatment is not expected to last for decades like in adult dentistry. So your responsibility is for much lesser time. And plus the problem ownership also works. I mean, every parent knows that the child eats lot of sweets. He doesn't get his teeth brushed well. So we all know this is not going to help for his future health. And take pictures, keep showing them pictures every 6 months, 1 year. Tell them when you came to me in 2017, it was like this. In 2020, it is like this. The parent won't tell you that upset docs what's the requirement of getting treatment from you. You tell them you fix the problem ownership. But in adult dentistry, if you have treated a tooth once, the patient expects it to be maintenance free for whole life. Like zirconia crowns, I mean SS crowns. Uh, I do an SS crown in maybe 2 minutes with experience in a milk tooth, and I charge almost half of what usually people charge for a zirconia crown on a permanent teeth. Remember, it takes 2 minutes to do a stainless steel crown and half the amount of a zirconia crown. No labs, no much cutting, nothing, not M plus, no much aerosols. Another example I give you is about mixed dentition orthodontics. I'm since 3-4 years I have invested a lot of my energy time into pediatric sleep dentistry. So expansion appliances. I mean, I have to give an expansion appliance just for 6 months. It has to stay for 6 months, and again I charge almost half of what many dentists charge for a single tooth implant. And this implant, mind you have to maintain it for whole life. And my expansion appliance is just for 6 months. So, which is more profitable. Then we all know today the parents are like helicopter parents. The child asks one thing, they will give him three. So once you are able to tackle the child well, the parents will be your patients. Remember, so many of times I get requests from parents, especially mothers, that doctor, if you can handle my kid, please treat my teeth also. But since I am into exclusive pediatric dentistry, I don't treat adults. I have to politely refuse treating them. But yes, it happens. So it's a great advantage people who are into general dentistry. I mean, get the kid treated well, make him a cooperative patient. That whole family will be your patient. Plus, in pediatric dentistry, there's half part is, I mean, our degree is called as pedodontics and preventive dentistry. You need preventive follow-up. You explain the parent that why you need preventive follow-up. Okay, and then you can do things like fluoride varnish, which is required for the kid. I mean, it keeps your revenue generating all, as well, and it keeps the child also dentally healthy. And I've already discussed this as the last logic is unique selling point. What is your USP? I'll give you a few examples of what can be your easy USPs. Preventive dentist. You tell them I'm a preventive dentist. I'll treat pit and fissure sealants. I'll do fillings on your teeth which are yet not cavitated. I mean, any full mouth case I start, who is 6.5 and beyond, I do pit and fissure sealants. So I tell them, sorry ma'am, this is protocol of all pediatric dentists worldwide. I'm going to treat your sealants first. It doesn't causes pain. It doesn't hurts the tooth. I think it is a good procedure for his dental life and plus gaining the child's confidence as well. Please remember, if the child has come with a milk tooth, swelling or pain, I have never ever seen in 7 years plus 3 years of my MDS days, in 10 years of pediatric dentistry, that no dental pain has ever been controlled, at least diminished by oral medicines. Put him on medicines, know the right dosage, know the right drug, the pain will go down. You will have 2-3 appointments before you can jump on that too. The parent wants you to treat the pain, the child doesn't want you to cause pain. I tell parents, see, if you have got a finger which is paining and if I touch it, it will also pain. Remember, just imagine what will happen if I start treating this finger. Same thing is with tooth, no? So parents do understand it, and then you do other things, and yeah, it helps. Other USP could be sleep dentistry. I mean, read about pediatric adult. I mean, 7 kids out of 10 requires a sleep dentist. How many in your family are snoring? They all require sleep dentist. Just create awareness. And before creating awareness, arm yourself with the knowledge of sleep dentistry. And pediatric sleep, I mean, adult sleep dentistry is so easy. I mean, the patients already come with you with symptoms. In pediatric sleep dentistry, we have to tell them that get this done, otherwise that will happen, which is much more difficult. So, sleep dentistry is good. Nitrous oxide, told you. Oromyofunctional therapy. All these sleep dentistry patients, mouth breathers, tongue thrusters, thumb suckers, requires oral myofunctional therapy. In fact, I'm telling you, 10 years down the line, many dentists, hygienists, speech therapists, yoga people will be exclusive oromyofunctional therapists. I mean, what is oromyofunctional therapists? They will be telling exercises of tongue and breathing, and they will be doing it as a full-time job. It's already happening in Western countries. I know people who are doing it, and this will come up in India as well. So people who are into dentistry, who like kids, this is a treatment. This is also a career option for you. Full-time oromyofunctional therapy. And it's very rewarding. And doing something first in your city is always good. And yes, being child friendly is again a USP. You tell that I'm a child friendly dentist. So as I said, when to decide that now you need to call in a pediatric MDS pediatric specialist or refer him to a pediatric dental clinic. Remember, in advanced behavior guidance techniques, you need a pediatric dentist. And what are advanced behavior guidance techniques? Three: protective stabilization, sedation, and general anesthesia. If you are not into pediatric dentistry since long, I'll advise you don't go into general anesthesia. Call a specialist and get it done, because general anesthesia you have to deliver top notch, most predictable dentistry when the child is into sedation or anesthesia, or in fact protective stabilization. What is protective? You have to hold the child and get it done. I mean, you are holding the child and you're not doing a pain. Suppose you have to just uh, do a fluoride warning because the child is not cooperative to hold and do it. You know you're not causing him pain, so you can take the parent's consent and hold the child and do it. But trust me, this is an advanced behavior guidance technique. If you are doing something where you have to hold the child or give any medicine to sedate or take him to hospital for general anesthesia, call in a specialist. Again, as I said, there's guidelines on everything. Go through this guideline of behavior guidance for pediatric dental patient by AAPD, and obviously severe malocclusions. I mean, 3 years down the line, I was losing those patients. When I started reading, I was feeling so bad for myself that so many cases were, I mean, right going through under my nose, and I was noting that this child requires oromyofunctional therapy, this child requires expansion. So read, guys. It helps a lot. And one thing to add, have you noticed in this advanced behavior guidance techniques, nitrous oxide is not there. AAPD considers nitrous oxide inhalation sedation as a basic behavior guidance technique, not advanced. So that's how easy doing nitrous oxide is. So on, and obviously yes, uh, I do 600 dentistry. It makes me do things very quickly. 400 dentistry always helps, but sometimes you have to do things like this as well. I mean, let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the sixth parent. This is a 12-handed dentistry, my friends. So sometimes you have to do this. A kid, I mean, who never cooperates but keeps coming to me every 6 months for fluoride varnish. It's done in pre-COVID era. So on the funnier side, yes. I mean, these are all my staff is. They are usually not in the same operatory on all the time. They are usually uh, helping my wife with the other patients, but sometimes you have to do this, and I keep such kind of patients. Again, a behavior guidance technique: keep such kids at your as your first or last patients. You cannot afford a child howling in your dental operatory and another new child waiting for you out in your dental reception. New child hears another child inside your dental operatory shouting, crying, you have lost the patient sitting out as well. And it's always said that for definitely negative or negative patients, morning appointments are best. So if the child can take off from school and come for dental appointments, nothing like that. Last appointment, what happens is actually you are also tired of treating kids whole day and your patient's level also go down. That is that diurnal variation in your patient's level. But yes, many parents don't agree to leave the school and come for a dental checkup. So probably last, you have to make sure that no other patient is waiting outside. So remember, it is not enough to do your best. You should know what to do and then do your best. So I mean, doing a you You could do the best filling and you have done is not the job done. You should know that which filling was best for the child and then do your best. So again, to know that what is best for that child, read. This slide I have just put because when I was planning interiors for my dental clinic during my PG days, I come across that in Western countries, people put boards like this that we are accepting new patients. Can you imagine? I mean, our dental clinic is so busy that they don't accept new patients. So this is one of my dream that I mean I'm not sure whether I'll be do it or not, but I mean, what else if you can tell new patients that sorry we are not taking new patients, we are overbooked with our old patients only. So that's how preventive follow-ups, old patients who keep coming to you helps. It happens in Western countries, can happen in your practice as well. To just on finishing last 2 3 slides, those who want to take pediatric dentistry seriously, go buy this book by Dr. Meenakshi Kher and Ashwin Rao sir. I just read it 1 year ago, maybe 8 months. I'm not sure. It's a thin book, maybe 200 pages. I was feeling so bad that why this book was not there when I was in first year post graduation. I mean, the things which are mentioned in that book, I have learned it through my mistakes. I have done things wrong and then I learned, oh, this is the better way to do it. And it's already mentioned in that book. If it will just take your, I mean, not even 2 to 3 hours to read that book. Such great pictures. Everything is so great because Dr. Meenakshi Kher, one of my mentors, is great with pediatric dentistry. She's been practicing exclusive pediatric dentistry in Mumbai, I think, for over 20 years. Yes, over 20 years now. She also conducts a workshop, Pedo Pathshala, which I highly recommend even for postgraduates and people who are fresh in pediatric dentistry. Whenever you get a chance, do attend her workshop. Your practice will change forever for good. I thank my other mentors, Dr. Kunal, Dr. Nami Nemi sir, who has mentored me in nitrous oxide and helped me standing, you know, uniquely away from other dentists who are practicing. Dr. Gayatri Moge, mixed dentition orthodontics, cleft lip and palate. I'm just learning things how to start with my cleft lip palate practice, and I thank Dr. Gayatri Moge from Hyderabad in helping me out with mixed dentition orthodontics 2 3 years back. Lasers, I mean tongue ties. Once you get into sleep dentistry, you'll start noticing tongues, and then you'll need lasers. Dr. Shivan Kumar from Chennai helps me a lot with lasers and tongue ties. Thankful to sir. And last but not the least, my own PG guide, Dr. Rashmi Nayak. I thank God each and every day that I was her student, and whatever I am there today is all because of the mentors which I mentioned in this slide and the previous slide. They help me a lot. So you should also find a right mentor. These are good mentors. I'm telling you, you can contact them. I mentioned their names. You can contact them whenever you wish to. But remember, they help people who are genuinely interested. No spoon feeding. Remember, no spoon. A good mentor never spoon feeds you. So thank you each and everyone for your patient listening. I'm available through this uh, through this email ID. Whenever you have a doubt, you can email me your patient records, good pictures, X-rays, anything else you want to academically, non-academically about pediatric dentistry. I'll be happy to help. Thank you. Thanks a lot. So, is there anybody from the? I'm done with my webinar. So if there are any questions, you can put it on the chat box. I'll be happy to help. I can wait for Dr. Isha. Hello, Dr. Isha. I'm so grateful that you could take time. Dr. Isha Malhotra is practicing in Delhi and she's my batchmate. She's doing great with, I know, with implants and adult dentistry. She's asking me to elaborate on myofunctional therapy. Myofunctional therapy is nothing but, I mean, it follows the principle of breathing through your nose, tongue at the right spot. I mean, I'm telling you, Isha, if you start reading, I'll share few books with you on this. It's a wonderful uh, thing if you can tell a child or even an adult. It's difficult with adults, but if you can tell a child how to breathe right, his teeth, his jaws will be so nicely formed and cavity free. So myofunctional therapy is nothing but exercises of the orofacial musculature and teaching the child how to breathe well. I have a dedicated orofunctional therapist in my practice, Dr. Komal. She is a BDS and then happened to finish her master's in yoga. She knows much more about breathing than me. So I pass on all my patients to her, and presently she's taking online sessions. Previously, she used to visit my clinic in pre-COVID era for therapies. Thank you, Isha, for putting up your question. So if Dr. Ankit or Mr. Sitaraman from technical team is there, if there are no questions, I think we can stop the webinar. Dr. Isha says another elaborate on nitrous oxide. Dr. Isha, nitrous oxide is something, I mean, it's a mixture of nitrous oxide gas and oxygen, which you give administered to the nasal hood to decrease the anxiety of the patient. I am sure because you are into implants, so many of your patients might be reluctant to go for implants because they are scared of dentistry. I'm telling you, start using nitrous oxide and your practice will go to some different level. You will be able to convert more of your surgical cases because do scalings. I mean, I take impressions also under nitrous oxide. So it's a great tool. Probably we can, I mean, someday I'll take a webinar on nitrous oxide. I'll invite you there as well. But it's a great tool. I mean, you can seriously give a thought of introducing into your practice. There are many companies. The makes I will suggest. I can suggest you two three. There's one Indian-made company by Dr. Akash Patrodia, Smart Set. They are Ahmedabad based. They have very good uh, post-sale network as well service. Then they have then they are Matrix. Then there is one by Dr. Kranti Kumar Reddy from Hyderabad. He deals with another machine, German-made company. He's also excellent in managing things. Every machine you have to see that who will give you a better service also after once you buy the machine. So yeah, these two guys are locally there. Dr. Akash, he manufactures it in India only. Dr. Kranti Kumar, he gets it from, I think it's a German-made company. Yeah, these two Matrix, and Matrix is all known. I mean, I have two machines, one from SmartSight, one from Matrix. Matrix is a gold standard type of thing, but it's on the higher side, cost wise higher side also.
Hi sir, if the session is over, then we can close the session. If there are any questions on Facebook, then we can answer there in the comments only.
Oh yes, definitely. You just let me know. I'll keep checking those comments.
Yeah.
So thank you,
Otherwise,
Chesa.
thank you for the session, sir. It was
Yeah,
a very good session.
same. Even I'm grateful for this opportunity. I want all the platforms possible to spread good words about pediatric dentistry.
Absolutely, sir. There are only compliments on Facebook. There are no questions as such. So
Okay,
if there are any, I'll let you know.
sure. I'll check them as well.
Okay, sir. Thanks a lot, sir. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Team Chesa. Thank you, Dr. Ankit.
Welcome, sir. It was a pleasure having you.
Same here.